when they finished murdering so many people that the ghetto was no longer crowded, they closed up the small ghetto, which was on the south side, and there was only the large ghetto left. And we got an apartment not too far away from what they call the Umschlagplatz. As far as I can translate it, it's probably not a correct, the killing place. It's probably not a correct translation. But Umschlagplatz was where they gathered people together. They just whipped them from the streets. They took them to the Umschlagplatz, and from there they divided those that they needed for work, the men, from those that were useless, like women and children. And then they put them on the trains to get rid of everybody except the workers. So we were caught one time. We were on the Umschlagplatz. And when you go in there, the officers decided to go to the right with children and women where you'll be exterminated, or you go to the left where they might have some use for it. So, but I do want to say something before that. Before we got there were quite a few incidents when we were just pure lucky not to have been caught. And by the time we got there, 1943, well, most of the ghetto was already gone, and we were just pure lucky to still be there. But in any case, they wanted my mother to go to the left. She was still a young woman, and me to go to the right. And I remember still, and my mother remembered it well, the people before us also, the woman wanted to stay with her child. And so the guard who was doing the administering it beat her with a whip. They had these whips with a little steel thing at the end, and they just whipped people. And my mother put her hands around my eyes or whatever. I don't know exactly what happened, but we were next. And lucky for us, they changed guards. And my mother said she wants to go to the right, the extermination, together with me. And so we were very lucky. That's what it really took to survive. Mostly guts and luck. I don't know which was more important. So we're on the right with a whole lot of other people just sitting on the ground. There was a fence around it. There's bushes and stuff here and there. And I don't know why. My mother said to the guard that I need to go to the bathroom. Can we go to the side? So that I wouldn't be embarrassed. I was, it was 4 or 5 years old. And he said yes, and he pointed and said, go there. So we were when he pointed, and there was a piece of the fence that was broken or open or whatever, and we went through it. And we never knew, was it accident or did he actually help us?
Wow.
Right?
If you had to guess, what would you think?
I like to think that inside people are good. Because another time I remember also, and this was also before this happened, or maybe after, I don't know which came first, but I was in bed and I was sick. And in those days, my mother had to work downstairs in the kitchen for the Nazis. And they were making soup or whatever it is that would be sufficient for all the Jewish residents. And she had to go down, so she left me upstairs and told me that if anybody came, because they would have these liquidations, everybody out of an apartment house would be liquidated to go downstairs and then be escorted, kind word, to the Umschlagplatz.
Wow.
Anyway, I was in bed, and as I said, I was sick, and all of a sudden I heard the stomping of the boots. The German Nazis wore these pretty boots, and they made a big racket and a big show of their showmanship. And ultimately, the guy comes up, and I knew he was coming up. I knew this was a dangerous thing. There was nothing in the room except a chifforobe, which is a place you put your clothes, and a bed. And I was in the bed, and they had down covers. And in Europe at that time, The down covers were one enormous pillow. They really were very, very warm, wonderful. So I slipped under my pillow and I'm holding it back with my toes and my head. And I'm hoping that whoever comes in will not notice me. I'm only 4 or 5 years old. Anyway, I could hear him come in, I could hear him touch the bed. I never saw him, and ultimately he walked out. Did he know there was a kid there? I don't know. Maybe he did. There had to be human beings even among Nazis, right?
But
But pure luck.
he felt the bed, right? Like with
Well,
you.
I don't know if he felt me, but he felt the bed. He felt the down cover. I don't know. I absolutely don't know. Anyway, um, and my mother, meanwhile, was downstairs, and in this place where she was helping to make, where she was doing whatever she had to do, they had these enormous, I don't know what you call them, pots that were huge.
Soup cauldrons.
Well, cauldron of some sort, right? And she knew that I was upstairs. She had told me that if I do have to go downstairs, I should scream. And I probably would have, but she herself was able to jump into one of the cauldrons. And so while they escorted everybody out of the room, she remained in the cauldron and managed to save herself. And then after the Nazis came or left, at least most of them, they also had Jewish guys. I forget what they called them, Jewish guards. And one of the Jewish guards came and opened the cauldron and found her. And they looked at each other, according to my mother, and I forget what my mother threatened him with, because it was his job to report my mother.
Mm.
These were Jewish policemen working supposedly for but he didn't, somehow or other. Now she was terrified, and she came upstairs, and I was still there. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. It's
Yeah.
terrifying to hear.
It was terrifying. It was terrifying, and I was sick, and she came upstairs, and we were the only two people left. So there was a number of incidences like that. And you asked how I got out of the ghetto, but you don't just get out of the ghetto. Being in the ghetto, you have to survive a while and have a good many incidences, and hope that you're alive long enough to try to get out, and that some of your family is.